Alright guys, so in the second phase of developing our mock ISU Pokemon trivia tutorial, we're going to start working with lists because we want to have a list of images, we want to have a list of questions that we could advance to, and then we're going to finish off this phase with the button to sort of advance us from one question to the next. Alright, so this part of the session makes heavy use of lists and something we haven't seen before, which is a list of lists. Okay, so that's a bit of a different thing, but I'll take some time to explain that to you when we get there as well. Alright, so let's start then by making a couple of lists. Alright, so I'm going to have a list of images, and remember how to make a list. You just go images equals and then 2 square brackets. That's going to be for the pictures for each question. Alright, and speaking of questions, I'm also going to have a list of questions. Alright, so let's go back up to the images list first, and we're going to build it one image at a time. Alright, so in the images list, I'll start with opening this up a little bit, and I'm going to put my first image there. So photo image, so basically it's a list of photo images, right? So I don't just put a list of the file names, but I'm going to, while I'm making the list, I might as well make it a list of actual photo image objects. Okay, so there's a photo image with the file pointing into my folder, and then Charmander is my first one. Alright, so I can copy and paste that and just change the names of my Pokemon. So there's a few more Pokemon, Jigglypuff, Bulbasaur, Pikachu, and I think there's 5 altogether. There's one more. Yeah, so then there's the last one there. So also make sure, guys, like Python doesn't care that this is all on separate lines like this. It's just, it makes it easier for us to read. And you got to put a comma after each one if there's more coming in the list. Now Squirtle's my last guy, so I don't need a comma after him because he ends my list of images. Alright, so there's just a list of photo images there pointing to the 5 Pokemon I've got in my file, or in my folder rather. Alright, now the questions is a bit more of a tricky thing to deal with because it's going to be a list of lists. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. So we're going to go down to the questions list now, and pause the video if you need to get caught up on the typing of this. So let me just come down here, we'll open this up again, just like the images one, and we'll start with our first question. Now our first question is going to be a list of its own. Okay, so it's going to be a list of lists because each question is its own list. So what makes up items in a question list? Well, first of all, we're going to have the question. Okay, so the very first question, the first item in that list is the actual question. What is Charmander's attack? Alright, so following that we need I guess the A, B, C, D options that are going to go on the radio buttons. So next is going to come A, B, C, and D. So Flamethrower is A, Flame Tail, Sword Dance, Head Zap. Alright, so that's most of the question. The other thing I want to store, guys, is which option is the right one. Okay, so Flamethrower is 1, Flame Tail is 2. So because the second one in the list here of options is the right one, I'm going to put 2 there because that's the right answer in this particular question. Alright, now before I reveal the rest of the questions to you, I went ahead and I made this little diagram of everything just to kind of label it and explain it a bit better. So take a look at this with me first, and then we'll introduce this to our program. Alright, so we have a list of lists. Okay, so there are 5 questions, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But then each question is its own list. Okay, so the location numbers go this way as well. So 0, 0 is the question part of the first question. 0, 1 is the A option, 2 is B, 3 is C, 4 is D, and questions 0, location 5 is the right answer. Alright, then we go to the next question, which is question 1, and it's another list. 1, 0 is the question for the second question. 1, 1 is the A option, 1, 2 is B, 1, 3, 1, 4, and 1, 5 is the right answer, which in this case is 1, okay, because what makes Jigglypuff sing, picking it up is the right answer, which is why this is a 1. Okay, who is that Pokemon? It's going to be Bulbasaur, so 3 is the right answer here. What kind of Pokemon is Pikachu? He's electric, which is option 4, right? And then which Pokemon evolves to Blastoise is Squirtle, option 2. Alright, so that's going to basically make up our list of lists. So it's just basically a list which contains more lists. Okay, and then each inner list is made up of 5 parts. The question, the A, B, C, D options, and then the last item is which one of those A, B, C, D are the right answer. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Alright, so that's basically what this looks like illustrated. Okay, now to bring that into my program, I'm going to do that just down here. Right, so I'm just going to bring in the rest of them there. Now I know this is a lot of typing, guys. It's really easy to make mistakes. So make sure, number 1, that every option has quotes around it. So that's the first thing. Every option is followed by a comma except the last one. Okay, and then each entire question also has a comma at the end of it, okay, except for the last question. All right, if you miss a single quote somewhere or a single comma, you're going to get into an error, and it's a bit tedious to type this out. I realize that, but when you go to do 15 questions, this is the format that you need to put it in. So make sure that you're error-free, and if you've made a mistake, just come back, look character by character at this, and compare it to what you have to make sure it is identical. All right, but I think you guys understand this concept, right, of a list within a list. Okay, so maybe freeze it on this part of the video if you want, just to sort of see it all broken down like that. All right, so I'm going to move on from there. So the other thing we need to keep track of, guys, is which question number we're on or which item we're on. Okay, now when we first start, we're not on any item, so I'm going to start item at -1. Okay, but then as we go to each question, we're going to add 1 to item, so it's going to become a 0, which means we're going to display question 0. Remember, these lists are 0 based, right? I forgot to sort of remind you of that. So question 0 is the first question. Okay, there are 5 questions, but they're 0 to 4, and the parts also go 0 to 5 this way. All right, so this item is going to keep track of which question we're on. Okay, so next I think what we need to do then is create a method that's going to advance to the next item, and then it's going to take apart the parts of these questions and then put them into the proper places. Like this, what is Charmander's main task? That goes in the big Q label at the top, right? And then these 4 options go into A, B, C, and D. And then we don't actually show this option, but we're going to use it later on in the next video to see whether they got the answer right or not. All right, so let's just go down a little bit here, make another def. We'll call it next Q, which is question number. Okay, now right off the bat, this def needs access to this variable item that's not inside the def. It's declared out here in the main part. So we've done this a little bit in the past. We need this thing called global. Okay, so global item means when I'm talking about item, I'm referring to the item that's declared outside this method. All right, so now that I have access to that, the first thing I want to do is advance to the next item. So I'm going to say item +1. That means go to the next question. So starting at -1, the first time I run this, it's going to go to 0, and then I'm going to display this question. All right, so now that I'm on a particular item, I want to display the details of that question. Now remember, because this is a list of lists, each item has 2 locations. It has the question number and the part of the question number. So question part. Okay, and again, I refer to this. Okay, so for example, 0, 0 is going to be the first question. Okay, now this 0 is fixed. It's always the question. Okay, but this 0 here is going to be the item I'm on. So questions at location item 0 is the question. Questions item 1 is option A, item 2, item 3, item 4, and then item 5 is the right answer. Okay, so watch how that works down here in this next Q thing. Okay, so first of all, if item equals 5, we're at the end of our questions because we only have 0 to 4. So once we get to 5, we're going to basically end the program. So how do we do that? We say app destroy, which basically closes down my tkinter app, and then we return, which means don't go any further. Okay, so I put that safeguard in there so that when we get to the end of the question list, we stop. Okay, now when you have 15 questions, this item's not going to go to 5 anymore, it's going to go to 15. Or say you have 20 or however number of questions you have. Alright, so if we're not destroying the app and returning, that means we're on a question. So now let's take the parts and put them into the board where they need to go. Okay, so first of all, the image that we're going to assign to the image label is now images at item, location item. Okay, and again, just like this list down here, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when item is 0, images item is going to be Charmander. Okay, so Charmander is the first image we're going to see. Okay, now the other list is again like a 2-dimensional list inside of a list. So we're going to have 2 locations here, not just 1. Okay, so for example, choice A is questions location item 1. All right, so again, going back to my document here, or my diagram, that would be like this thing right here, right? This is the flamethrower. Okay, and then choice B is questions item 2, right? And then C and D are going to be 3 and 4. Okay, so again, going back to here, right, we're basically talking about this part here, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And item is, in this case, 0, right? So we're just coming into 1, 2, 3, and 4 and getting all of those things. All right, and then 0 is the actual question, right? So that's the next thing I'm going to put in here. is Q label text, which is my question, is questions at location item 0, because 0 again is the first part, which is where the actual question is. All right, so we're almost done. The other thing we want to do is we want to, when we go to a next question, we want to unselect whatever choice I made from the previous questions. Okay, so again, if I set that choice RB_var, radio button variable, sorry, string variable, if I set it back to question mark, that means it'll unselect what was previously selected. Okay? Alright, so that is going to allow us to go from one question to the next. Alright, now when we first start this thing, we want to go to our first question right off the bat. So for now, and we'll take this out later, at the very bottom, we're just going to make an initial call to next question. So I'm just going to go like this, guys, next Q. Okay, so this isn't going to rely on a button. This is just going to allow me to load my first question right away, so I can see it right away. Okay, now I also want the button, next button, to run next Q as well. Okay, so up here where I've got command equals go, I'm going to change this also to next Q, just like that. Okay, so down here we go next Q bracket bracket because we're actually running it right off the bat. And up here we say command equals next Q. We don't need the brackets here because it knows that this command is a function or a def already. So that's a lot, but that should do it. So now we should be able to see one question at a time until we get to the end. So let me run this and we will see what happens. Alright, so there's my first question. What is Charmander's main attack, right? And you can see from the list here, guys. So this is part 0 and it's going here in the label. Flamethrower, Flametail, Sword Dance, Head Zap, all the way down here. Alright? When I hit next question, boom, next question comes up. What makes Jigglypuff sing? The next question, who's that Pokemon? What kind of Pokemon is Pikachu? And what Pokemon evolves to Blastoise? This is my last question, guys, so watch what happens when I hit this. Okay, and it basically shuts down the program because of this code here. Item gets to 5, so we destroy the app and we return. Alright, so that's a lot of progress. Hopefully this list thing makes a lot of sense to you. I've explained it many times now. Hopefully it makes sense because this is how you're going to format your own questions for me when you go to do your own. Alright, so in the next one, why don't we then now submit the answer and see if we got it right or not. Okay, so we'll do that in the next video.